Mr. Anders, why you have presented in Albania for the reconstruction of this square?
You mean
why you participate in this concourse?
Why we have participated in the competition? You know, yes, we have seen the announcement, which was published internationally for this competition, and let's say as an office, an architectural urbanist office, we understood immediately that it's a really challenge, such a project.
Why it is a really challenge project?
It's the center, a historical center of a city, which, let's say, gives into competition a project of 65 square meters, and within an area which is the, let's say, the historical center. And I think the challenge to find a new reality for this is
it is difficult to change or to give another view to a square who has been built by the Italian or during the time of the king, then the communist. You can have the Italian architecture, you can have the Russian architecture, and you have the Chinese architecture in the front. It is difficult to change this area.
I think the first change was done by the master plan.
Yes.
And this master plan really changes the complete ambition of the square.
Yes.
Like before, it was designed to be a very open square, almost like a traffic junction, where all the avenues come together. In the master plan.
In the beginning.
In the beginning,
yes.
Let's say 40 years from now, when in communist times, it
yes.
was designed to be more of a crossroad than of a square.
Yes.
And the French master plan changes this idea and turns it into a pedestrianized area, and which is much more lively, and which gives much more space for people to gather informally, and is less monumental.
But the problem is the square here is not a square for the people, or in general it's an administrative square. That means we have the buildings of the ministries, the Mairie of Tirana, the City Hall of Tirana. You have here a building which is an administrative building, the hotel, and the museum.
Yeah.
How the people will come here?
Well, as we have witnessed,
the people, maybe they need a coffee shop, they need some souvenir shops, they need a library, I don't know. But why the people will come here?
Well, what we have witnessed is, first of all, there's a lot of coffee in Tirana. It's all over the place. So I think it's important that this square becomes more than just coffee. And it's part of an urban sequence. It's part of an urban promenade, which we can see here, yes. Which is the boulevard. And for instance, on Sundays, people walk up and down the boulevard, and they enjoy the light, the space, the sun. They talk with each other. And the design that we have made makes this possible and enhances this possibility of walking around, of meeting, of... So we have designed a square which is consisting out of two main interventions.
Yes. Which are?
Well, the first intervention is to make a rather empty center.
Yes.
An empty center so that you can see all the historical buildings which are around it.
You preserve the historical buildings in general.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And we think this is crucial for the history of the square.
Why? For the history of the square.
But also for the future of the square. And the second intervention is that we make a collection of parks and smaller gardens with a lot of green around the square, which goes around this central area. And so you will have this duality. So on the one hand, there will be a formal square, which is empty and where you can see the history. A history which is, for us, something which evolves and which will change in the future. And on the other hand, you have the collection of parks around it, where there's a shadow, where there's a lot of urban furniture, like benches, and where there's a lot of grass, and where there's a lot of green. Also area for kids to play. So in the end, the project will be very diverse.
can I come back to your
Yes.
question? Because it's an interesting question you put there on the table. Let's say, I think Tirana and the way the center is shaped, even in the 30s with the boulevard, is one of the rare European cities where all the public buildings, like ministries, like
Are in the
library,
center.
are in the center. And this is a really advantage to take,
Even,
to
even the
use.
boulevard before has been projected to be as an administrative area with the
Yes.
administrative buildings in both sides, in two sides.
Yes.
I mean.
And this is something which we evaluated.
Not nice for the people in general, I think.
I wouldn't necessarily say this because,
Yes, why?
let's say, if you take the boulevard, in second plan,
Yes.
you have a lot of commercial activity which is growing. There will be bars, restaurants, shops, and so on. So if you go to an area like Bloku area, people, it's very lively, it's very crowded, and people relate to each other in public space by having a coffee, by going to the shops, by going to the restaurants. But this center is different.
Yes.
And it is important that it is different. Because here in this place, people can relate without being in coffees, in restaurants,
Yes.
without showing off with
Different
cars.
philosophy of life,
It's-
yes.
Yeah.
exactly. And I think the Albanian people like this. They do this. It's their history. They walk without, let's say, having coffee.
tradition
It's a
in
tradition.
Albania, yeah, it's a tradition.
And I think we are aware of, let's say, of course, we are aware that this quality should not be lost. Let's say the complete center should not completely be commercialized. So in this project, the fact that we have these important historical buildings around the square,
Yes.
we want to maintain it and to, let's say, further develop it.
But it was an idea during the master plan of the French master plan to close a little bit the square and to cover some buildings as a, for example, the Tirana International Hotel or National Museum, because I think the architecture is not very nice.
I think the principle of the master plan
Yes.
is that on the one hand you have this ring road,
Yes.
which is a bit the coffee commercial area that you talk about. And in the center of
Inside
this
yes.
ring road there would be a calm area.
Pedestrian free.
Pedestrian,
like it
yes.
was. I think that's the main issue of the master plan, what have been designed.
Mhm. And we have completely kept this principle of the master plan.
And also the master plan defines, for instance, let's say, they give guidelines in general, and then they have pointed out some areas to be further detailed and developed, because the master plan was not able to go into detail. So, and let's say the square,
Yes.
what you're talking about is not only this. What the master plan is doing very right is to say the center is the whole
Larger
area.
than the
Yes,
the
and this is
main
a crucial
square,
point.
yes.
So the master plan goes from the ring road to the space which is behind the opera, which is behind the ministries, because the master plan understood very well that it is not only, let's say, trying to make a historical center,
Yes.
but trying to relate the center to the commercial area at the back.
Wait, should be close to the ring road.
Yes, and they have suggested, of course, new buildings too. The reason for this is that it is a danger, and we have this danger in many West European cities, is that when we are renovating our city centers,
Yes.
we are making sometimes a mistake that we are historizing them for tourism.
Yes.
We are defining them like we think they have been at a certain time in a certain area.
Yes.
What the master plan requires here is that among the historical buildings should be new buildings. Buildings which are, let's say,
Where will be the new buildings?
within this frame. It doesn't define it exactly.
Yes.
And let's say today, the new buildings, it is actually not in the scope of our work. So let's say our scope of work is to
Your
do
engagement is just to do
the square.
the main square.
Yes.
Yes.
So in the future, the master plan defines that there should be other competitions for new buildings.
Your intervention should be just in the main square here, or even in the area surround area.
What you see
In the whole
in the
this
whole area, it's
Yeah.
65,000 square meter of paving.
But it's basically a
And the
horizontal
works, yes.
horizontal project, so it's just the ground and
Yes.
what is under the ground. And so everything that in our competition proposal that we have suggested in terms of future development is in an urbanistic way for the future to come.
Yes.
For the future's building to be built, for the future's to relate to the outside. Maybe we show you some drawings.
Yes.
It would be nice to...
Yes, I have 2 or 3 questions before starting to
Oh yes,
show.
of course. So
First of all, you said at the beginning the projection of this square 40 years ago or 45 years ago, I don't know exactly, has been the idea of a crossroad, to cross the roads and the traffic from everywhere. Now, this one should be a free cars area, that means pedestrian area. It is possible for Tirana to arrange that the traffic with this small ring?
Well, the traffic is part of the proposal.
Yes.
So
because if you turn your head, you have to see there are a lot of cars moving on this area. Where the cars will move?
let's say 40 years ago, there were no cars in the city, you know.
Just 100 in whole Tirana.
Yes, it's amazing. I cannot imagine what it would have been. I mean, it would have been fantastic.
I can give you some films or some pictures.
Yes, of course.
To have an idea.
Films.
It's very interesting.
But with Crossroads, I think it's more the idea. Let's say if you're on the square, you can see half a kilometer further down in Ruga Duresit, Ruga Cavaies,
the main boulevard.
The main boulevard. So that means that all these centers, all these roads, were visual access towards this center. It's a crossroad, not let's say a roundabout for cars. It has been designed as, let's say, the place where all these roads comes together. Now, let's say 20 years later, when let's say the complete city is cramped with cars, I mean, Tirana faces maybe even more severe than every other European city a traffic problem. I mean, a traffic issue, which is solved in the future. I mean, this is of course not the scope of this is out of the scope of this project. I mean, the must absolutely. The traffic is solved in different plans. I have seen that, of course, we have related this plan to the general traffic plan, master plan for the complete city, which is a system of different ring roads.
Yes.
Let's say this is the inner ring road, but there are, let's say, 4 ring roads which try to solve.
This is our problem, not your problem.
No, no.
But you said you will work on the horizontal area. That's mean on the main square and surround area with the parks and everything. Do you will have the intervention on the faces of the historical building as the Palace of the Culture here or the museum, or just in the horizontal area?
Well, there is an important part of the project is a lighting project.
Lighting.
Yeah.
So as you see now, if you look outside, it's very messy, and a partner in our team is a lighting expert from France, who has done a lot of important projects in France and abroad.
And historical buildings like Bethlehem, Jerusalem.
And he has developed a lighting project so that the buildings, their architectural qualities will come to the fore. And I think this will be a very important asset of the plan. We have proposed some interventions on the bottom of some buildings to change their relation to the square.
For example?
For example, the mosque will have a new platform, which will integrate it more into the square.
And which, I mean, I was shocked to say that at some days people are praying, let's say, on the road, and cars are almost driving over them.
Because the mosque has been built in 1822, 23. That's been 200 years ago.
Yes,
when Tirana it was 3,000 people.
So in one intervention there, for instance, is to create a big carpet in front of the mosque and to give it an address on the square, because this is one
space for the people to pray. Yes.
And let's say another example is, for instance, the puppet theater, the small theater, which is
the former Parliament of Albania. Yes.
Exactly, which is a very nice small building
and very historical one,
hidden behind the trees.
Yes.
Also, the way this building should relate to the square is more children friendly. We will create there in front of it place with water, and also at the backside the toys, the sand basin for children to play. So it will be for families a perfect area to stay. So every spot in the center is designed to relate the buildings to each environment. Even the sunken garden, for instance. We will keep the idea of the sunken garden, but we will slightly incline the grass. So it can, let's say, function as an open air, a festival garden.
We will have more gardens on the center of the city at the end of your project?
Absolutely.
400 trees will be built.
400 trees. Where?
Well, that's maybe something.
Yes, if you have.
It's a good idea.
By the power.
I think this.
So, like Freek has explained, it's
Yes.
very important to understand that the square is two things. First of all, you see the square is one open area.
Yes.
There will be sun during the day, there will be darkness during the night. What is important in this square is that, let's say, it gives an address to all the buildings which are here, to every historical moment of every historical importance in the Albanian history. And so this is one. Second, we will create a ring which connects this square to the ring road, the traffic ring road. And even this place will be the place where people gather, in the shadow, in the green. There will be a very comfortable climate in there. It will be darker, it will be very comfortable during hot summers. And this space allows for the buildings to communicate on small scale.
Yes.
So,
And so this is.
This is an example. It's mirrored.
Yes.
So this is an example of the feeling that you will have. So here you see from the shaded ring of parks.
You will
you
choose
see
also the trees?
Yes.
Yes. What we have. So this was a first proposal, but
Yes.
I think the.
What kind of trees will play here?
So this plan gives an idea
Yes.
of all the trees, both existing and new, that will be planted. So you can see here there are lots of trees planted.
Yes.
Also here, also there. These are existing trees in front of the puppet theater.
The book of
Yes.
Yeah, it's mirrored. I don't know why, but this gives an idea of the type of trees that will be planted. Some will be very large,
Yes.
and some will be smaller, and they will be planted in the place which suits them well.
That means 400 more trees in the center of the city, just in this area, surround the
And we
main
will
square,
also, the different type of trees, we will do not scatter them like this. We will create sometimes flower gardens. That's in spring, this garden turns into red. Or in another moment, we will have fruit trees. So every place along the square, around the square.
We'll have the different.
Yeah, we will have different trees, different characters. Sometimes the light is very dark. The pine tree is in the center of the sunken garden, which creates darkness, and they are higher. So every garden will have its own character.
Yes.
From the building point of view and also from the green point of view. And we call them like antechambre. They connect the city with the square. They create the silence of a very busy city towards the center.
But in all of this, there's another very important aspect, because of course, if you develop a plan, it's easier to talk about what you see.
Yes.
But I think this project is as much, almost 50%, about things that you will not see. It's about the underground infrastructure.
Yes, I know that.
For instance, the first phase that is planned now.
Have you an idea about the underground infrastructure on this main square?
Yes, absolutely.
You mean the existing?
The existing. How is?
It's a mess.
It's a mess. Yeah,
because I think has been built for city of 250,000 people,
Actually,
not for 1 million.
You are right on the top of this. I think that's, let's say, winning a competition of this kind
Yes.
is, let's say, it's the end of the beginning, which means that you have an idea of what architecturally, spatially, this place can be, but then you have to start.
Yes.
Then you realize that if you cover this square just in a layer of stone, that it's not a solution. That a square of this kind is, let's say, 40%, 30–40% of the budget that we will have foreseen for this square is going to the underground infrastructure.
30 or 40% of the project is going for the underground?
Exactly. And this is not even serving the square, but this is serving the complete
whole
city.
Absolutely. And at the end, do you think we'll have an infrastructure, underground infrastructure, for example, for the future?
Exactly. You will be there for 50 more years.
50 more years.
Can you imagine that? Yes.
What we have designed together with a team of local engineers, both electrical, sewage engineer, is to provide a system of tunnels which remain accessible also after the square is closed up. And in this, this tunnel system will allow flexibility of new infrastructure to be put. So for instance, if in 5 years from now there is a new data cable that has to be put and which has to pass the square, it can pass under it without opening up the square. So it's a long-term investment, which I think will give the square flexibility, which is crucial for the center of Tirana.
Let's say, if you see that image.
This is now?
This is the existing situation.
And
so we have drawn all the cables, piping, sewage
passing
through the square, and you see it has been installed ad hoc, just without the visions. And the next slide shows you how we will clean up. So every cable we will relocate, and we will position them in a system of tunnels, you see?
Yes.
From east to west, and from south to north, we will create tunnels which allows you to go in and...
Accessible tunnels.
Accessible tunnels. Today, even on the ring road,
yes.
Which, let me see, now I'm lost in space because we are mirroring the complete project. But today on the ring road, there is an existing tunnel, so we will use it, we will connect it.
So with the new tunnels you will build. I have a question. Too many people in Albania, especially the urbanists or the architects, they are thinking if this main square should be closed for the cars, that means pedestrian area, it's much better to build the tunnels or the undergrounds to pass from Rruga Durrësit or Rruga Kavajës to the east of Tirana, or to connect the two main boulevards. It is possible or not?
Well, I think what you say is... Tell me, you go.
Well, of course, we didn't research this kind of project.
It's beyond the scope.
Because that was not the question we were asked. But seeing what happened in cities like Brussels, for instance, where we come from, is that you see when a city expands suddenly, like Tirana has expanded enormously, that people still think in a small scale, but they should look for solutions in the large scale.
Yes.
And it's clear for me that putting a tunnel under a square would only make the problem worse. I think what urbanists really have to do in Tirana is to not think anymore in the frame of...
To enlarge the city.
But to enlarge the scale and to really have the...
More space.
More space and...
Because it's a matter of mentality. Today, if somebody goes from the east to the west of the city, he has the idea, I go to the center and then I'll pass. So and it's true, today the city is like this. But let's say if we have looked to the traffic schemes which are now being applied piece by piece, the idea to manage all the cars is to, again, to try to learn to people that when they come here, they should go around and not pass the center, not to create problems. So it's a change of mentality. So I think this bridge idea...
At the moment, I think we have a problem because we have just one ring at the moment, who has been built by the Italians 60 or 70 years ago, when Albania had 1,000 cars. It's totally different. We have to build the rings, in fact.
This man was a visionary, let's say. He knew what will come
at the time. I think they were the good architects.
Absolutely.
The people who
Absolutely.
built the center of Tirana. But the center of the square should be as a pyramid, with a kind of difference from the center to the sides. Why this kind of pendants, let's say?
I think it's this intervention of making a square which slopes up to the center. First of all,
what should be the difference?
2.7.
2.7.
Yeah,
Yes.
but on such a large scale,
Yes.
it means that the slope of the square will be not more than the slope of a pavement.
Yes.
So people will not really feel it. It's not that it's like this. It's not a mountain.
Yeah.
It's just a gentle slope. But because of the large scale,
Yes.
suddenly if you're in the middle, you're 2.7 meters higher. And the importance of
You
this
can have a
intervention
view, yes.
is that you can indeed have a view, and the buildings like the museum or like the opera are very, very monumental. And by making the square as a counterweight to this monumentality, I think the whole balance of the historical setting will shift and will become much more human.
These buildings were
Yes.
made to look up to. Let's say people were standing in front of Enver Hoxha, and
Yes.
this building was a kind of monumental backdrop for Enver Hoxha. And so people, you have to imagine, were looking up to this building.
Yes.
This square allows you to not change the building
Yes.
because they're protected, they are cultural heritage,
Yes.
but to change the perspective to the
Of the
building.
view, yes.
Your feeling will be completely different just by raising it. So this was a kind of solution to change the buildings because they were, let's say, interpreted as not being nice.
Yes.
And so we found the solution that at the same time we should have protected the buildings because it was a request.
Yes.
And at the same time we should, and this was a request from the master plan, to think about these buildings, how to change them. So we found a solution not to touch them, but to change them.
To change this.
So in this way we respect the historic, let's say, the historical buildings of the city center, but we found a new way of looking at them.
What kind of materials you will use for this main part of the square? Will be stone or what kind of materials? The pyramid, let's say.
The palette of materials for the whole project is quite diverse. So
Yes.
for the whole project, it will go from hard to soft.
Yes.
So from stone to grass. But for the parts which are really stone,
Yes.
we have done an investigation. And this investigation is
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard to see.
it's impossible to see, but
Yes.
we have looked at the map of Albania
Yes.
together with the Geological Institute.
Yeah, we have done research in the Geological Institute.
And there we have discovered that the diversity and the richness of Albanian stone is really enormous. It's often very high quality. And
It's very high quality.
Let's say some stones are very high quality.
Coming from which part of Albania?
Let's say from Tropoja, from Bilišti, from Berat, from Gjirokastër. These are really important stones, and the colors are so, let's say, linked with Albania. And we really wanted
Yes.
to use in the center of Tirana stones from the north, from the south,
So-
from everywhere.
but of
let's
course,
say
when-
Should be the different stones or different color of the stones or?
Well,
like you explained, to different palette.
Uh-huh.
And one important guideline for this palette is that for the center,
Yes.
for this, let's say, how you call it, pyramid,
The pyramid.
Yeah.
Pyramid. Yes.
we will use not a dark stone. And we proposed to use this Tropoja stone,
Yes.
which is slightly green, sometimes gold. It changes color when it's wet, very nice.
It's a good quality of the stone.
Yes, it's, they build houses today with these stones. And around the square, we will use a palette which is much darker to enhance the contrast of light, to dark in the shadow, to create this clair-obscur effect between the ring. So here will be, let's say, we will do
But of course we had to learn when first when we saw all the stones, there were like hundreds and hundreds of stones, and we liked everything. But of course we had to choose, because only a limited number of stones are really suitable to use them on the ground.
To be used on the center. Let's say, to give you an example, what is this is it's the paving in front of the ministries.
Yes.
Which will be a combination of Girocaster stone and Berat stone, white and black. And just by deciding on the pattern, we will have a gradient from light to dark. So amazing to...
But should be stone, not...
Yes.
And it's the same stone which is in the boulevard.
Yes.
So you will feel the continuity, so that the project really continues into the center.
With the main streets of the... How long or how much time you need to build the whole center of Tirana? That means to finish your project.
In an optimal version,
yes.
Let's say, if we don't find surprises, if we don't have difficulties to, let's say,
you
to
always
continue.
will find surprises in Albania, but we are talking on the theoretical way.
Let's say, in our theoretical optimum, let's say, a process of 20 months to 24 months should be feasible to do the job.
If we'll have some Albanian problems?
Only God knows.
Yeah, it's for sure, for a project like this, cooperation between all parties is crucial. I mean, it's in all big urban projects. If all the parties which are involved do not cooperate, then we will not get our theoretical planning.
I tell you something. We have done this competition in 2008. On that moment, when we have won, we were surprised. We did not think we would win this, because you know what the concurrence is, these international. So we were really surprised.
Yes, absolutely.
And we had,
it was a very high quality of the represents.
Absolutely. So, but 1 week later, we understood that this was merely the beginning of a very, let's say, complicated, difficult project. So if you see our team, who is in, it's a really European project, because we needed
How many people are working for this project?
Well,
in your side, not...
we have made the drawing of this, because we asked ourselves the same question. It's very amazing to see all the people. Yeah, again, it's a bit so. Let's say you cannot else for such a project, you cannot else than work with the best specialists in Albania, who know the underground infrastructure, who know the hydrology, who know the... So we have a team of, I think, 4 or 5 Albanian engineers on this project. And we also have, for techniques which are, let's say, not known today, like the fountains, like the lighting, like the greenery. We have international experts from France, from Canada, from the Netherlands, from Germany, all in this team. So we have a contractor which is also from another nationality. So it's really a European project. So we had to cooperate, and within this cooperation, which took us 1 year to really detail, to make sure that this project is a good project. So now we are starting, and again. It is very important that in this project, it's really an opportunity to take that all parties involved in this project really support it in order to make it into a successful project.
Because I think one of the reasons why our project also won the competition was that our project was realistic. Because a lot of extreme, beautiful visions were presented, but I think our vision was also realistic. And we also have developed the project in such a way that we have checked and double-checked all the technical solutions,
yes,
so that they are also that they can stand the test of time, and that they are also feasible to execute them in a context like Albania, where building technology is not always the highest.
yes.
And I think, but it's not a problem. I mean, it's just a parameter in the design of the project. And if you work with this parameter, I think the project will benefit from it.
Do you think the center of Tirana, when you will finish your project, should be a point from where the other parts of this city will be developed?
Well, I think development in Tirana obviously comes from all sides. There's no time that you come to Tirana and nothing has changed. And I think that's also the problem for people, that this transformation is happening on so many sides that they lose orientation. And I can imagine that now that the square will change, it's still the biggest reference point for people.
Yes.
It will take for people a very big step to find again their pattern of life. And we realize that a lot of people doubt if this project should be done. And I think it's really out of a feeling that you cannot change everything. But I think it's really important that the city transforms in a good way,
Yes.
in a durable way, in a sustainable way. And we think our project is a modest project, a good project, a project with ambition, and also a project which gives future. So I think the intervention we don't see it as the end of things. We just see it as the beginning.
I imagine how the center of Tirana will be after 2 years, let's say, and we have to be optimist on this way. But how do you find the center of Tirana when you for the first time came here?
What kind of impression it gives?
Yes.
It's a kind of impression that we have now with, with the music from. So when we first came here, we thought that it's an East European country.
Yes.
Because there was still the division in our minds of Western Europe and Eastern Europe. And when we came here, we were very surprised to find such a Mediterranean country, a country where a lot of people live outside and meet outside. It's also a very warm country, not only in terms of climate, but also in terms of how you meet people.
Of humanity.
Yeah, and so we really like to come here.
We were, in a way, we wanted to give this project a human scale because this is what we really appreciate about the Albanian people. They're really human, in a way, and at the same time, to find such an how to say a monumental square, it was somehow a contrast to be solved. So to keep the monumentality and to give it at the same time the humanity, it's needed. And this is the contrast we have overcome in this design.
It was difficult to. I asked you in the beginning, but I want to re-ask you. It was difficult to change or to give another identity at the square where some of the buildings are Italian architecture. Here we have a Russian architecture built from or projected by one from the most known Russian architecture, and in the front we have some Albanian architects under the influence of the Chinese urbanistic and architecture.
And don't forget the beautiful building of the National Bank.
National Bank was Italian architecture as the main boulevard and the main ministries. And I think the Austro-Hungarian, which is the former parliament or now the theater of the marionettes.
Well, let's say if you put the question now, I wouldn't use the word change anymore. I would use the word rehabilitation of a square which is today lost its, which is today do not find his identity.
Okay, you have something? No. Thank you very much for this interview, and I will say you good luck.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much.